City of Stevens Point Personnel Committee meeting, recorded July 13, 2020.
We are called to, the Personnel Committee is called to order at 7:29. Shall I call the roll, or would somebody like to?
I'll call it. Shore.
Okay. Here.
Dalton.
Here.
Nabel.
Here.
Zarazua.
Here.
And Leek.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Lisa. So the first agenda item is the issue of whether to change any of the citywide elected positions of city clerk, comptroller, treasurer, and city attorney, whether to change any of those to become appointed positions rather than, as they currently are, elected positions. We had an extensive discussion of this back in March without reaching a decision. We returned to the issue last month, and I didn't feel that we were quite ready for a decision at that point. And so what I did was to offer to draw up a note laying out some of the related issues so that we could be ready at this committee meeting to vote on it in some form. And so I wrote that. I think a little later on, I would like to ask some questions to Comptroller Treasurer Laddick, but before that, we'll just open the floor for any discussion or questions in the committee. Am I hearing none, truly?
This is Alder Zarazua.
Thank you.
I just think this is a really difficult topic. I just keep coming back to like the trust in democracy and the process, and our highest offices in our nation are elected. I understand talking about the technical parts of these positions and the concerns that come with that, and the risk if we would have someone not qualified in these positions. Also respectfully understanding that the people we have in these positions, we don't want them to have to, go out and get votes and to keep their jobs, so it's really hard because I think it's a very complex issue and I'm having a hard time with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Alder Zarazua. Any other committee members? Alder Dalton, Nabel, or Lake?
Yes, Cindy Nabel, District 3. I have a question in that, has there ever in the past been where somebody has run for any of these positions that was not qualified? Have we ever had that problem at all that anybody can remember?
I mean, I don't think in more recent memory, right? So I don't know who we can turn to
I think
to look more historically.
The mayor's been, on the council for a long time prior to becoming mayor, and I'm just wondering, has he seen any difficulty with this when we did vote in the democratic way for these positions? Was there any problem with having people that were not qualified that we were worried we would get on as those positions? Or have we always had people that were qualified and didn't have to worry about it?
Alderperson, if I may, Mr. Chair. I think your question is very subjective. I think depending on who you ask, Sometimes they may have been filled with qualified people, or sometimes they may have been filled with unqualified people, just like every other position in the world. However, the job always got done. One thing that I can tell you that I've been on since 2004, that your city administration works as a team. And while we don't always necessarily see eye to eye, we always do what's been the best interest of the city. So to answer your question, I can't tell you that the job always got done. I think we had good people in the positions for the most part. There were some personality issues, but that's going to happen in any walk of life. So I was on the committee when we last looked at this, elected versus appointed under Mayor Halverson's administration. And at that time, we unanimously, the committee decided to keep it elected, offer that accountability to the public, every couple of years. So the public determines whether or not the people in these offices are doing good jobs.
Thank you. And I think that we've been trying to have this discussion along the lines of what you were just talking about, that we're not asking about like disagreements or thinking of whether someone's doing a great job or a perfect job, or handling it exactly the way that we would or would like it to be done. The question's been raised for us of whether we just find ourselves, as things work out, with one candidate on the ballot who, where it's like just a clear mismatch of skills in a very obvious way. And here, my thought in terms of engaging the comptroller treasurer, because I think our sense is that that's the position where, being equipped for it is especially important. And so if I may, turn to Corey, who we're going to look into the future, right? Because he's in the position, and nobody has been dissatisfied, and hopefully he's also satisfied. And we're talking about, a galaxy far, far away. But this is a question about the local labor market. This is a question about, the scenario is there isn't anybody to step forward and and put their name on the ballot, and so it needs to be handled in another way because of that, right? Like put out an announcement, get applicants who might not be in the area. With all that as background, turning to you as someone who understands very well the demands of the position, I wanted to ask you, we're talking about this fear or concern, that there's nobody around. As you think of the position, the demands, and, just as you would think about looking in the community, do we have people who could do this?
So, of course, that's kind of a somewhat speculative question, obviously, because trying to think, in the future, would somebody step forward? Would that person be the right person? I'd say I'm optimistic on that I think that we would find somebody to step forward who would be able to do this job and who would be qualified. I can tell you that when this position was an open seat before, which was about 7 years ago, there were two of us that ran for it, and in my opinion, both would have been qualified and both would have been able to do a good job. So, I think that you could find the right person someday in the future. Myself personally, if that, if we were at that point in time where I was getting close to retirement, I think we would want to start having that conversation a little bit more seriously to think about, okay, how are you going to sort of promote this and make sure that there are good candidates to step forward and throw their hat in the ring for the position. So I do think that I'm hopeful that you would be able to still find somebody who would be good for this position. And then I guess the only other thing to note is, sometimes if something really dramatic happened where, let's say, somebody is suddenly sick or hurt or just unable to continue in a position, of course, that would be an appointment anyway. And that the county has been in that position a few times over the past couple of years as far as appointing somebody for an elected position, just if somebody leaves midterm. So, and I think that they've had good success with that, in my opinion.
Thanks. That's very helpful. So with that, let me open up to anyone else other than the committee, the public who'd like to. President Johnson, I see your Zoom hand raised.
That is my little Zoom hand, cute little thing that it is. So again, I'm the one who initiated this, I guess, because I have a tendency to be a systems thinker. I'm not thinking about the people I know now. I'm thinking about the future. And again, so many cities across this state have gone with finance directors because they knew it was in their best interest to hire highly qualified individuals and not risk having an unqualified individual run for for that position. The same with the city attorney and with the clerk. As it relates to the county, those are statutory constitutional positions. The treasurer, the clerk, and there was one more. Oh, the register of deeds, and I think clerk of courts. Those are all constitutional officers. So in order to change that, we'd have to change Wisconsin Constitution. And frankly, I think it's time to change that as it relates to these positions. I'm not thinking about the people I know now. I'm not thinking about, has this ever happened before? I'm thinking about what is in the best interest of Stephen's Point now and into the future. That is why I'm having this discussion. And again, the idea of trusting the people to select these, if that's the case, and we want our department heads accountable to the people, then we should have elected department heads. So, and right now those of course are accountable to the mayor and his administration with some oversight by council. So this is not an attack on any single individual. This is about looking forward and seeing what is best for this community. I'm not saying I don't trust the people, but if the people don't have a choice, that's not a democratic process. That's just checking off a box because you went to the ballot and there's nobody else there and you went, hey, I met him or her once at Lowe's and they seem nice. So that's the basis of this conversation. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I think we can all see that this was worth looking at. I take your point, another way to ask ourselves about this is whether we see these positions as more like or more unlike the department heads. So that's another way that people can look at the question and consider it. Anyone else wanting to? Who do I hear? Yes,
if I may. Well, I guess my question is, or from my point of view, again, taking a hypothetical political structure or future political office holders, if these are hired positions, what is the guard against a future council or a future mayor hiring yes men? or yes people, as it were. Because right now I feel like with the city attorney Beveridge, he's not answerable to me or anybody else like a mayor or somebody. His advice is I presume independent in this case. That is, if he gives me the wrong advice, he's not afraid, or not the wrong advice. If he gives me advice that I don't like, he's not afraid of retaliation because he's not answerable to me for his job. And the same goes for also with running elections. I am concerned that someone who is running elections but is answerable to a political office holder is looks bad to my mind. And I guess I'd like to know how the proponents of this proposal address those concerns. Or maybe I'm off base, but
no, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Unless anybody has something else, we can give President Johnson a chance to respond.
Certainly. My response is there's no perfect system. There simply isn't. All we can do is look at the facts and make a determination about what will be best for the future of the city of Stevens Point. One system says we elect and hope that we have a choice, and those choices are qualified. And if we don't like the choices, then in 4 years we vote them out, or as David's analysis did quite beautifully, we have some choices as a council, not many, to oust a duly elected individual. The other option says, oh my gosh, we could have yes people. That is true. But that's what we've got for department heads right now in many ways under that scenario. Our public works director, our parks director, any of those could become yes people. But if we're going to, if we're going to do an analysis that is always looking for fault in any system, we will not make a decision. We will have paralysis by analysis. And again, I am throwing it out there. I am one vote. I know how I would vote. Because I have seen systems work in other municipalities where the non-elected positions for whether you want a finance director, attorney, clerk, work just fine. So again, there is no perfect situation, none.
Thanks for that. And I would only add that in terms of preserving independence, if we were comparing appointment by the mayor versus appointment by the council, at least the fact of a council being made up of a lot of people, I think that probably would do better at preserving that independence. I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Chair Shore, you have a message. You have a message from Alderperson Dalton.
Thank you very much.
Point of order.
Yes, I didn't see that. Alder Dalton, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we're getting to a motion here, because I think if we're going to continue to have this discussion over many months, that we should be discussing a proposal on the floor as is appropriate in the process here. So I'd like to hear a motion. Otherwise, I think we should move on from this discussion to the rest of our agenda.
No, thank you. The intention from last month to this month was exactly to tee this up for decision. I will move that we leave the position, all of the positions as elected rather than appointed. Is there a second?
I will second that, Alder Zarazua.
Thank you. Further discussion, please go ahead. Who was that?
Bob Weir.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, you've made a motion now, so I wanted to get in before you made the motion.
No, I think we can, the motion on the floor can still be discussed.
Okay. Well, and I'm not a member of the council, so I'll discuss your motion. Several years ago, all the department heads or the directors, director of parks, public works, community development, so forth, were appointed on 2-year terms by the mayor. Prior to Mayor Wiesa being elected, the council changed that method of 2-year appointments by the mayor to undetermined appointment, just continuous appointment until the council, and I don't recall exactly what the wording was, but there was a method for the council then to remove that director for cause. The prior mayor had made a statement, basically, I believe it was on committee appointments, where the council didn't agree with the mayor's appointment to certain committees. And the mayor said, well, look at the ordinance. The mayor appoints. And basically left it at, if you don't like my appointment, that's fine. I'll turn around and I'll appoint the same person again. So if you go from elected officials or elected positions to appointed positions, I would strongly suggest that you have very strong wording in however you're going to change the ordinances, so that you would not end up with a bunch of yes people, i.e. the person that's appointed to the position, if you go to the appointed, that the individuals appointed would have to work with the entire council and with all of the citizens of the city of Stevens Point, rather than just working for the mayor.
Thank you for that. I have Alder Slawinski next, and I was unclear whether Alder Morrow still wants to speak or whether whether Alder Dalton made his points. But Alder Slawinski, go ahead.
So I agree with the President Johnson that our current system isn't perfect, but it is working. I was one of the alders back when this was brought forward when Mayor Halverson was in office, and I basically have the same feelings now that I did then, is to keep this as elected positions. I strongly believe that it maintains the checks and balances. I was part of that discussion, obviously, a few years back with the department heads, where they went from being appointed to being hired. And again, the same argument was that if we continue with appointed, these individuals could turn into yes men, and that, they would basically be held by the mayor to follow the wants of the mayor, and not so much that of the citizens. So again, my thoughts have not changed. I feel that how we have it now is working, and that's what I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. I now have Alder Kneebone.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think with an elected official who needs to garner campaign donations to run, you open the door for quid pro quos. So someone could say to the city clerk, hey, I gave you X number of dollars, you owe me a favor. I think with the increased complexity in technology, particularly around our elections, and the increased attacks cyber attacks from other countries make it imperative that the individual running our elections has skill and technical understanding. I think the same way with municipal finance. I can balance a checkbook, but there's no way I could try to put together a bond issue. So I know we have help from Ehlers for that, but I think it's extremely important to have people in these positions that understand the complexities of the job. The only other city experience I have is working for the city of Dallas. We had a strong city mayor, strong city manager, and a strong city council. And all of those offices were appointed. They answered to the city manager, and the city manager answered to the city council. So the council had a lot of power there. But in my mind, it's a question of increased demands of our technical society are going to require an awful lot of expertise for these positions. And again, no system is perfect. There will always be room for abuses. And I think the present political situation we're in says that pretty well. Not locally, though.
Thank you, Alder Nebo. Alder Morrow, you are.
Alder Morrow, District 11. I agree with Alder Slowinski. I think especially with the comptroller, we get audited to make sure that we're not getting embezzled. And there are the checks and balances that are in there. The elected officials that we have, like our city attorney or clerk and so on, they are that check and balance. But I think as a mayor, I think you have I think you are able to put the people that you want in there for for the administration that you have. A lot of elected officials are able to do that. The president's able to do that. Any type of mayor, governor is able to do that as well. And if there are issues or problems, the city council can go in there and address those issues as well. In regard to money, at our local level, that's always folks could try to bribe someone even if they didn't have any campaign money. That's just like a fact that's been done other times. But I think the current system that we have now is really good. I think that the elected officials that we have are also really good. And that's shown throughout the years that it also works. I have no doubt that some mayors have put in yes men into there. And that's just part of the history that we have. That's any kind of government. As Melissa Johnson said, nothing's going to work 100% of the time, really. But I think the system that we have is good.
Thank you. So unless there is anyone with a really urgent burning point to make, we will go ahead and vote. And I think we should have a roll call. So Lisa, if you would call the roll, please. And the motion was to leave. The motion was.
Sure.
The motion was to leave the current system in place with these three positions staying as elected citywide positions.
Mr. Chairman, Alder.
Yes.
Oh, I see it's gone now. Alder Dalton had her virtual hand up, but it's gone now.
Okay.
Shall I call the roll?
Please.
Sure.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
I have a question. Are we saying aye to being elected?
Yes. Keeping. Yes.
Keeping it? Okay. And I will say aye.
Leak.
Aye.
So the motion passes, and we have basically not we've taken action and we haven't taken action. we decided to leave things as they are. As with other issues, this can be pulled from the consent agenda and discussed and decided by the larger group in the council meeting. And with that, I go to our second agenda item, agenda item number 3, the request from PD to interim move an assistant chief up to step 5 in grade S. And Lisa, would you like to give the background of this?
Sure. So we will be recruiting for a new police chief. Tom Zenner, assistant chief, is acting as interim chief. So that leaves a vacancy. It has been vacant technically since February. So the management and the Police and Fire Commission worked with the bargaining unit to get them to approve promoting someone on an interim basis from the bargaining unit. We've done this before in both police and fire. Generally, when we hire an assistant chief in police and fire, we end up filling that position at step 5 of the grade they're in, which is grade S, simply because of the overtime component that those individuals are giving up when they become management employees. So that's the request that's before you this evening. This is not something new or that hasn't been done before. Also included in the packet was a memo from Interim Chief Zenner kind of outlining the request and the purpose for it.
So the idea, if I understand correctly, is during an extended sort of holding period, in terms of responsibilities being filled in positions that are temporarily vacant, to let those, not only let those responsibilities be filled, but the appropriate, that the compensation be appropriate to that. Is that
correct? Okay. Correct.
So with that, any comments or questions? Alder Nables, we'll begin with you. Oh, no, you're still muted. Unmute yourself, please.
Sorry about that.
There you go. Yes.
I would like to move that we approve that request to the interim assistant chief up to step 5 in grade S.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Alder Dalton.
Alder Dalton seconds. Any further discussion or questions from the committee? From anyone else? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye and unmuting yourself.
Aye. Aye.
Any nay? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, item 4 comes from the Community Development Department and is a request to redistribute hours for the administrative assistant. This is, I guess, moving some responsibilities around in terms of the staffing and community development. And if you would give us further background on this, Lisa.
Certainly. So the request, and I think Ryan kind of outlined it very well in his memo to the committee. His request is to increase the part-time admin secretary's position from 22 hours a week to 32 hours a week. And it can be handled within the existing budget. The neighborhood improvement monitor position, they didn't find that to be as fruitful as they had hoped. So they would be basically using monies that were available to fund that position to cover the cost, if you will, of the increase in the hours.
So it's a reassessment of where the staff time is needed.
Correct.
Thank you. Alder Nabel.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, and I don't know if this is okay, but my concern is that if we agree with this changeover, does that mean that we will not have a person that does any of the work that we had of the person that we basically let go for the position of inspections for outside inspections throughout the community.
No, the neighborhood improvement monitor was basically a seasonal position that worked in the summertime, most often covered it on bikes. So that was a very part-time kind of seasonal position. The other position that's currently held by Mark Cordes would still stay intact.
Correct. I understand that. And Mark Cordes does not do the does not do the patrolling. And I think we still need that. And that's my concern, is that we lose that, and we were supposed to have had that at least as a part-time, not just a summertime person. But when we all talked about this way back in our voting, it was to approve that our citizens did want to have somebody that did that kind of patrolling, and now we would have none.
Director Kanowski, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark Cordes, I should clarify, does patrol. He does spend quite a bit of time out in the field looking into violations, looking for violations. We have a set area map that he addresses on a pretty regular basis. We are looking to shift what is essentially the neighborhood improvement monitor positions, those part-time seasonal positions, to the police department, to the CSOs. Chief Zenner and I have been in communication regarding that. Part of what is interesting is community development is probably the only department that doesn't have seasonal employees working every summer or every busy season. And so we ran into issues last year with, as outlined in the memo, inconsistent enforcement, inconsistent supervision, because if you come in on a Saturday, when you have your community development staff typically working Monday through Friday, there was no one to oversee this person, which became a little problematic. So by shifting this responsibility from the weekend and night enforcement from the neighborhood improvement monitor positions to the CSOs, the community service officers, we're still addressing the enforcement on the nights and weekends. And then part of that too is we're going to have Mark work with our CSOs to make sure that we have consistent enforcement throughout the summer months. So that's really the patrolling and whatever else won't go away. It'll just be shifted from a seasonal and community development to more consistent enforcement with our police department.
Thank you. I do have a question though, again, where you say for summer, and the position we always had for someone for doing some of that patrolling was not ever supposed to be just for a season. It was always supposed to be a part-time, all year round position. And I know it was before you were involved in this, Director, but I still feel that that's what we voted on as a council way back. And we've lost that when Mark went into a new position. And I know you've had difficulties having somebody that'll do this job, but I don't want to see this being, it's great if it goes to the CEOs, but it needs to be all year round. And that's where my concern is. It should not just be a summertime.
And the CSOs do work year round. And so that will help us with addressing the winter items and fall and especially spring cleanup as the university students leave. So there will be more consistent enforcement on a more regular basis. So.
Okay, that's great. Everybody kept saying summer, and I didn't want that to become that's what the job. Thank you.
Thank you both for helping clarify that. Anyone else on the committee have questions or comments? Anyone else not on the committee with questions or comments? And looking for a motion.
Alder Dahlman, I would move to appoint or to approve the requested redistribution of hours from admin assistant to community development.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Alder Zarazua, I will second.
Thank you very much.
The mayor had his hand raised earlier.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to add anything?
Just a quick comment.
Please.
We have been operating administratively with additional hours for this position. because due to COVID, more people being at home, we had seen such a spike in permit requests that we were not able to keep up. At one point, we were at least a week behind on simple residential permits because there was such a volume coming in. So when I found out, we authorized the additional hours administratively. So this is going to help the community development keep up with the permit demand that we were receiving, which is a good thing, right? We're increasing the value of the city.
Definitely.
But you know, if you have to wait a week to get a permit to replace your faucet, that becomes problematic for property owners.
Point taken. Unless there's anyone else urgently wanting to weigh in on this, just as a voice vote, all in favor of approving this request, signify by saying aye and unmuting yourself. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Was that Alder Nabel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
4-1.
4-1. Yes, thank you. Bringing us to item number 5 from the Water and Utility Department, an update on request to reclassify a position.
So per city administrative policy, when a reclassification request is submitted, I'm supposed to bring forward a list of those positions to the Personnel Committee as an informational item, no action necessary. So my memo in the packet will fulfill that request. This position actually became vacant in January. During the interim period of time, Director Lemke took the time to redo the job description and evaluate how to best use that position to complete work within his department. He took his time in doing so, which is a great thing. On June 24th, I received the request from him for the reclassification of the stormwater and collection superintendent position. That position had formerly been a conveyance manager position. So per city administrative policy, we forwarded the new job description to Springstead for review and grade placement. So I'm just advising the Personnel Committee per policy that happened. The next item on the agenda is action to approve the findings of Springstead, but we needed to have this piece in place before we did that piece.
Okay, thank you for that. I think, I mean, not I think thank you, but I think I understand. So, I mean, our discussion can either come under the current agenda item or the next. It's the same matter, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Bringing us to item number 6, action on the reclassification, and I will start by checking. And so you sent this off to the firm that did our pay plan, right, who worked on the classification of the different positions to get their opinion on making this change, and they said what?
They agreed that after their review of the position that it did belong in step S, as in Sam. So in Joel's letter that he included in the packet, he's basically asking that the position be reclassified to grade S.
Thank you. And I see Alder Dalton raising her Zoom hand.
Thank you, Chair Shore. I would move to approve the reclassification of the utility position as described in the letter from Director Lemke.
Thank you for the motion. Any second?
I'll second. Alder Zarazua.
Alder Zarazua seconds. Questions or discussion? Going twice out to non-committee members. Okay, all those in favor of reclassifying the position signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The reclassification is approved. Next item, number 7, is a request from the aforementioned Director of Utility and Transportation to promote from within. Does that have to do with the hiring process? Is that what that's about?
Correct. So it would be the hiring process for the position that you just approved the reclassification on. There's a city administrative policy 2.06 that discusses promotions for employees. Generally, per that policy, the person is known at this point. However, in his memo to the committee, Director Lemke indicates that he feels he has a pool of potentially eligible employees. So rather than waiting a month and bringing that individual back, he wanted to get permission from the personnel committee to review the pool and then name the person promoting from within.
Otherwise, there's a requirement to announce and conduct an open search?
Somewhat, yes. And he feels he has a pool within.
No, I should clarify. I'm not skeptical of the recommendations. I'm double checking our role. We're needed to support the hiring within rather than the conducting of an open search.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion along those lines.
Alder Dalton, I would move to approve the request from the director to promote from within.
Thank you, Alder Dalton. I see a second from Alder Nabel, if I'm interpreting that correctly. I see her nodding. Thank you. Any discussion, let's say discussion on the committee or anyone else? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The request is approved.
Thank you, Alders.
Thank you, Director. And bringing us to item number 8, a request to create a training officer position in the fire department. And thank you, Chief Finn, for the memo on that. Either Lisa or Chief Finn want to give further explanation?
I think that Chief Finn's memo pretty much gives very good detail of the request and why they're requesting it. And in his memo to the committee, he references filling the position at step 2. During the 2019 budget process, which took place last fall, the City Council approved filling regular positions, if you will, at step 2 of our matrix. So that's why he references step 2 in his memo.
Thanks. No, the memo was clear. It explained that that firefighting is a profession where keeping up with standards and practices is a very fast-moving thing. So it was a strong case for the position. With the other point relating to what other positions could or couldn't be created at this point. Any questions or comments from the committee, or if Chief Finn feels like there's anything that needs to be added?
Just if there's any questions. Also, the Police and Fire Commission has approved this.
Thank you. an important point. Thank you for that. Then how about a motion?
I would like to move to approve I'm looking at the request to create a training officer position in the Stevens Point Fire Department. I watched them today down my block, and electrical line came down in someone's backyard, and they had 5 children. Some of the kids were in the backyard, and they were so wonderful. I happened to be just coming home down my road just to see all this going on. It was a scary thing, and they were so great. So they handled it very professionally, and also made sure that the house next door knew about it, even though it wasn't in their backyard. That power would be off for a while, but what a scary thing to watch. And it was really amazing how quickly they got there and got it taken care of. So all the training they can get, because there's all sorts of weird things. It's not just a house fire. This is all an electrical spark just going crazy on the ground. It was very, very interesting. So I would definitely approve this training.
Thank you for sharing that. And of course, given where Alder Nabel lives, she can almost see everything that, at least before they get very far from headquarters. Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second it, Leak.
Thank you, Alder Leak. Any discussion or questions from anyone?
Alder Shore, I have a comment.
Please.
Alder Kneebone here. As I was saying earlier with the electeds or the hired position, the technology changes so fast these days. It's really important for all our firefighter paramedics to keep up to speed. So I think this is a great move by the department, and strongly support what the chief wants to do here.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Anyone opposed?
And that motion carries.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
And I think Alder Dalton might not be muted.
I know, I just muted her.
Thank you. Bringing us to item 9, which is to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute concerning dismissal, demotion, licensing, or discipline of any public employee or person licensed by a board or commission. And we have...
You'll need a motion to go into closed session with a roll call vote.
Right, I was going to get to the part of the matter, which is that we have an appeal of a grievance, or no, we have a grievance appealing an action. And yes, before going into closed session, we need a motion and roll call vote.
I move to go to closed session. Leak.
Thank you, Alder Leak. A second from Alder Nabel. Lisa, if you would please call the roll on going into closed session.
Shore.
Aye.
Dalton.
Alton. Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Leak.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Bringing us to the part that Mayor Wiesa warned us about.
Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be removing people. We have Patrick Draper and Mark Delorme. Delorme. That will be staying in. Everybody else I will be moving to the virtual waiting room. Please stay there if you wish to see any action that may occur in open session, or if you're staying for the next meeting. I just got a message from Attorney Beveridge that his internet just got knocked out, so he is going to try and call back in, so I will watch for that. So as I move you into the waiting room, just please stay there if you choose to, or if you want to know more about the action in open session.
Mayor, also Director Lemke will be in the closed session.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Is that the only director that we're going to need? The rest can go in the waiting room?
Yes.
Okay. I have a phone number here. I assume it is Mr. DeLorme, 608-206-3002. Is that you, sir?
No, Mayor, that is me. I'm the city assessor, Steve.
Oh, Steve. Okay, I'm going to put you in the room then. So give me 1 second. I got to get some information to Logan here. Okay, Steve, I'm going to put you in that room then.
Sounds good.
Let's see. We are recording. You are good to go, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So we have just reviewed the grievance appeal of discipline in Central Transportation. And what are the committee's wishes?
I move to repeal, that is to say, accept the petition from Mr. Dalton to repeal the disciplinary action, the write-up taken against him.
So the motion is to affirm, well, what do you do to a grievance?
Well, the grievance is standing, and the question is whether we repeal that grievance, right?
He has filed a grievance against the disciplinary action.
Oh, then we want to affirm that grievance if we're
No.
putting this in a positive.
What are the options in response to a grievance, please, Mr. Mayor?
Actually, you have a city attorney. He's going to cover it just as well. Thank you.
I think the phrasing that makes the most sense would be to either grant or deny a grievance.
Okay.
Or think of the word appeal as a stand-in for grievance.
So grant. So Alderleek, did I understand your motion to grant the grievance?
Yes, to grant the appeal of Mr. Dalton.
Draper, yes. Draper. Yep.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Alder Dalton, I would second.
Alder Dalton seconds. Now, obviously, this should be a recorded vote. So, Lisa, please, if you would call the roll.
Shore.
No.
Shore.
No.
Dalton.
Dalton. Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Leek.
Aye.
4-1, the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Draper. Thank you, Director Lemke. And the Personnel Committee adjourns at 9:05.
City of Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission, recorded December 10, 2019.